Heidi-ho, YouTubers. The scene I did today, well actually I did it yesterday, but this was a bit of an exercise in data management since the original scene in OpenToonz got, I had actually fixed the shot up, and then somehow, and I can't explain it, the Toonz file got corrupted, and it got corrupted in ways that a lot of rigorous time being spent looking at the file, the contents of the file, looking at it in a text editor, looking at the level settings to see if the paths were wrong. Basically all the levels were not being found, and it was a weird situation because there was a backup version of this scene that was not tweaked, brought up to date like what I did here, and all of the paths were the same, and yet in the old version the levels would come into OpenToonz, and in the new version they wouldn't. It was one of the weirdest file management situations I've ever seen. I don't think it's necessarily a complete indictment of OpenToonz, but it is a signal that if you're going to use OpenToonz, it's probably good policy to never mess with the file structure that OpenToonz creates and manages, and number two, what I'm actually going to do is the next shot there's a shot that I'm going to be working on today, and I'm actually creating a completely clean OpenToonz project, and I'm going to start from scratch there and do a couple things differently from now on. One is every time I create a level, I'm going to give it an intelligent name and not let OpenToonz give it names like A and B, C, And the other thing I'm going to do is, as a matter of policy, I'm going to use importing instead of loading. Traditionally, what I normally do is when I drag an image, let's say, into an OpenToonz level, I will load it. So in other words, I know where it is on the hard drive, and OpenToonz is going to reference that location. I'm kind of rethinking that just to see if I get more stability out of OpenToonz across the board. Kind of like, let's just let OpenToonz do its thing its way. And so that means whenever I bring in something, I'm going to do an import, which means a copy of it will be made. But come on, hard drive space is cheap. Anyway, the upshot of all that is I want to see if I can take what I've been learning and the workflow I've been developing in Krita and see if I can bring that back over to OpenToonz so that I get most of the benefits of Krita plus the benefits that only OpenToonz can give you, like like the animate tool, the ability to do layer grouping and parenting and all the rest. So having said all that, because of the file management debacle that occurred, I thought, you know what, let's life gives you lemons, let's make lemonade. And so I decided to make some lemonade by completely redoing this shot. I mean completely, in Krita, and the only thing I really did was I brought in the background of the wall, one image of the ninja guy, and then I did keep the animation of his foot right there, because it was good, it was pretty tight, and very little tweaking needed to be done to make it perfectly fine. So getting back to this Krita project, this was really a good move, actually, is completely redoing the rock falling, because that was one of the weaknesses of the original shot. I played around here with doing a motion blur on it, and initially thought, wow, the motion blurred version really looks cool. And then, as we'll kind of see here, even though it goes by really fast, once I compared it to the non-blurred version, it was kind of no contest. I realized, actually, the non-blurred version, it looks more cartoony, which basically makes it look better, So yeah, because one of the goals here is a good marriage of you know, where Krita is strong and where OpenToonz is strong, and obviously Blender as well at times. Now, somebody posted me a note today asking me, and this was in response to a fairly old video, and the question was, why don't you use Blender for everything? And I didn't answer the message. I think what I'm going to do is tell the guy to watch this video. But the real simple answer is that let's just put it this way: 80% of what I'm doing at all times, Blender's really not that good at. Okay, and the biggie being painting. One of the reasons I like Krita is because the painting, what you see me doing right here, is very fluid and interactive. It's like a paint program as opposed to more like a vector art or drawing program, which the Toonz raster levels in OpenToonz can kind of be likened to, in the sense that you can change colors after the fact, but you can't just go ahead and paint, because every single time you want to change color, you have to create a new palette entry with a new color. It gets very cumbersome. So in that respect, if you're going to do a lot of hand painting in OpenToonz, you want to, in other words, you want to kind of do what we're doing here in Krita, then you want to use a plain old raster level. And frankly, if you did the painting in Krita and then dragged it into OpenToonz as an image sequence, it would be imported as a raster level. That's exactly what it would be, because that's all raster levels are. They're just plain old image sequences. So the two actually can play together quite nicely. In this case, I became a little skittish though, because as I said, the file management issue was so egregious that trying to work around it was almost certainly going to take longer than just redoing the shot. So that's why I'm redoing the shot. So there's some, you know, the big difference, and you'll see it at the end of this video when I go ahead and play it back, is I wanted the guy to do a double take. I wanted him to sort of have a reaction to the fact that his foot slipped, which is the thing that happened before this. Well, I guess it's actually in this shot. So his foot slips, a little piece of the wall pops out, which of course he doesn't necessarily know that, okay? But after he slips, he kind of jerks, because it almost, you know, he would almost fall if his foot slipped like that. So he has this surprised look on his face. And then he suspects something, looks back, sees the rock falling, and then does a double take, because he's sort of absorbing the implications of just how much trouble he's in with Ninja One, who is obviously the leader. I did a little thing different here on the shadows, by the way. You'll see the purple popping up every once in a while. I actually did the shadows in overlay mode so that I could tint his skin blue. You see it right there. So I could tint the skin blue just a little bit, and anywhere where I wanted just a neutral shadow, I would just switch from the purple to the black. So the one thing I learned here that was really useful is that if you're working in Krita and you've got a layer like we have with the shadows where they're very transparent, it might be maybe 20% opaque, when you isolate the layer, which in my case is mapped to the tilde key, so if I hit tilde, I can have 20 layers, but the layer that I'm currently selected becomes the only one visible. Well, when you do that, it also becomes fully opaque. Why is that cool? Because that meant that when I was jumping back and forth between black and purple for the shadows, I could just isolate the layer to sample the purple. If it didn't go fully opaque when you isolate the layer, then I would have to make the shadow layer fully opaque every single time I needed to switch colors, which would be really obnoxious. Now there are workarounds. You could create a utility layer with little patches of the two colors you need, so you can just snag. I mean, there's always another way to do it. But so the other thing here was the explosion, if you can call it that. It really isn't an explosion. It's really just a dust cloud from the rock hitting the ground. But there's another project I'm sort of poking at, which is in like a trailer or anime adaptation of a novel that a friend of mine wrote, that involved a lot of particle type effects like what you see here with the dust cloud. And I had been working on that a little bit the day before, so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to redo that and kind of take what I'm learning about hand animated frame by frame particles and see if I can improve that dust cloud a little bit. Okay, so we're coming up to the end of the line here, and what I did was I put in this video, I put the old version, which does have some things to recommend it, there's no doubt about it, and then followed by the new version so you can kind of see what the difference is. The main difference for me is in the acting. Okay, so here's the old version. He does flinch, and then poof, and he flinches again and then looks up. Okay, so we'll see it twice. You notice the foreground rock wall doesn't look that great. Okay, so now here's the new version where he realizes something went wrong, does a double take. Oh my goodness, am I in big trouble? Whoops. What just happened? Get the idea. So I think the acting's a little richer, and as you guys know, there will be more later.